Yeah.
Speaking of, well-paid fighters, I saw you tweet the other day or earlier that, only three boxers made more than $20 million in the last calendar year. And one of those is youngster Jake Paul. First off, how do you feel about that from your business side of things and then your personal side of things? And then secondly, is this the future of sports?
Yeah, I think yeah, so just for everyone who didn't see it, it was basically Sportico did they do a very similar list to Forbes where they come out and they say, hey, this is how much athletes made last year, kind of on the court, on the field, whatever it is, versus endorsements. And there was only three professional boxers that made $20 million or more. I think Canelo Alvarez made 60 and Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul made 20. So I was like, yeah, three boxers made it. Two of them were world champions, and then there was Jake Paul, right? So one, I got some backlash because people were like, he's not a real boxer, right? That whole angry argument. And
Which is ridiculous because it's all just entertainment.
like, and that's what it is, right? And we are talking about McGregor earlier. It's the same thing. McGregor's a world-class athlete and he's an incredible fighter. But at the end of the day, the reason why he was so successful was because of his ability to market, right?
Yeah, I mean, the
And
dude has lost fights. He's not Floyd Mayweather, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, he's A, a great fighter, but B, an all-time entertainer.
all
And
time.
even when he loses, he's still an all-time entertainer because we enjoyed watching like the lead up, the fight, and then him be like the classy dude that he is.
Yeah, he's must see TV. And that's exactly what
Yeah.
Jake Paul became, right? He's just like, whether you like him or hate him, you have an opinion, right? Most people at least
Mhm.
can say, hey, I one or the other. And you want to see what he does. So like everything's calculated, I think, right? Like maybe there's some things that he doesn't think, hey, he wasn't planning on doing. But at the end of the day, his one goal is just to drive attention and awareness to himself, which is what it is, right? Like people hate on it. I don't hate on it. I think it is, like the guy knows what he's doing. He's playing the cards he's dealt really well. So I don't have a personal opinion one way or the other. If I don't like him or I like him, I think it's fine. But yeah, look, I think we're on the same page as like whoever can do that the best is going to end up winning in sports. And I think that people that are scared that boxing is going to trend that way need to realize that that's what people care about nowadays. It's all about how much attention you can grab from someone. And these fighters that historically have been the best in the world, right? And then it takes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years to make a fight. Like people just don't want to do that. They don't have the patience for that. They don't care. Like most of the top fighters, they're not even marketable enough anymore. You know what I mean? Like one example that I was thinking of the other day was Tyson Fury's little brother. He's like 5-0, 6-0, whatever. And most people only know of him because Jake Paul was feuding back and forth with him, right? He's like, Tyson's little brother's like, hey, we should box, whatever. He's like, you're not on my level. And most people probably think like, you're not on my level as in like, you'd probably knock me out since you're a real boxer. But what the reality is the kid's 5-0 and his next fight is against a guy who's 0-12 or 0-14, right? And that's what boxing does. And that's, I think, a lot of the general frustration is like, you can just so easily pad your stats until you get to a level where it's like must see TV. And people don't want that. And I think that's one of the reasons why UFC has caught on really well is because I talked about this the other day on a Twitter Spaces, but two of the things they did really well, in my opinion, were they allowed athletes to show their personality, right? And one of that was through The Ultimate Fighter, the TV show. So
Mhm.
most people don't know this. They actually got turned down from basically every broadcast network you could imagine. Because if you think back in the day, MMA was seen as like barbaric. Everyone was like, no, John
Right.
McCain called
Like
it
some
human cockfighting.
gladiator stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. John McCain was like, no way this is ever getting approved in states. This is human cockfighting. Like literally he called it that. And it eventually did, right? And they showed the personalities. And I think people respected the fact these guys are, calling their wives saying, hey, look,
Right.
I'm training. I'm trying to get us a 6-figure contract from the UFC, whatever. And then the other example of that is Dana White in 2011. He took when all the other leagues were saying you can't use social media, we're going to fine you, we don't want you using this stuff, like it's just dangerous to use Twitter and everything like that. Dana White created a program for the UFC where he put away like $245,000 or $250,000, and he was paying out periodic quarterly payments, bonuses to fighters for who used Twitter the best, right? And it was genius. It was genius because he was basically, look, like we just need to get in front of people. We need people to understand our sport. We need people to understand these are real people. They're real fighters. And it's free marketing for us, right? So he was paying out like $5,000 and everyone was tweeting nonstop, trying to gain followers to get the bonus, because UFC fighters, they only get paid when they fight. And back then it was like, hey, maybe you're making 60, 100, 150K in a year. That $5,000 a quarter is pretty important, right? So I think
It's
stuff
so
like that.
funny.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And we've seen more leagues kind of adopt that now. Like the PGA Tour just did the Player Impact Program, where they're going to pay out like millions of dollars every year to the guys who do it the best.
Nice.
And I think it's just all in the similar nature of like these guys in these leagues realize it's all a battle for attention, right? And I think that it's just kind of like who can capture the most share in the shortest amount of period of time.
Dude, it's so crazy. The UFC, I mean, that's an incredible story. I didn't know that about the tweeting, by the way. That's
Yeah, it's crazy.
it's good, but it makes sense. Dana's got, his head on very, very straight. Going from what they were launching in the early 90s to being a $10 billion organization now. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.